Hey, what's going on? Jeff Ratcliffe here. Fantasy football draft season, it's here, baby, and it's always good to roll into draft day with some sleepers in your pocket. Now, I know sleepers aren't what they used to be. They aren't what they were 2 decades ago, but it's still nice to know those under-the-radar guys you can get in the late rounds possibly, especially at the wide receiver position. So let's break down some wide receiver sleepers here for 2019 fantasy football drafts. And like I said, you can get them at wide receiver because the position is so deep this year. So I'm looking in the late rounds, and I see a guy like Anthony Miller from the Chicago Bears. I'm definitely targeting this guy. After what we saw out of Miller last year, he was banged up for really basically the whole season, and he still went out and caught 7 receiving touchdowns. Rock solid performance out of him, and he has major upside. We've only seen the tip of the iceberg in terms of what Anthony Miller is capable of doing. Like him to take a step forward this year in the Chicago Bears offense and really emerge as that number 2 wide receiver option. Of course, Allen Robinson, the number 1 wideout for the Bears. So Anthony Miller loaded with upside in that offense. Certainly sleeper potential for you. How about Dante Moncrief as well? I know a lot of people are going to be looking to James Washington, and I guess we could have James Washington on this list, but a lot of the reports out of Pittsburgh training camp say Dante Moncrief's the guy to be the number 2, not James Washington. We know Juju's locked in as the number 1 receiver, but whoever gets that number 2 job, they aren't going to get Antonio Brown's targets from last year. Antonio Brown, 25, 26, 27% target share. No, that's not going to this number 2. They're not even getting Juju's target share from last year, which was 24%. However, this guy, whoever is the number 2, could easily see 17 or 18% of the targets. And let's be clear, if it's 17% and the Steelers attempt 600 passes, which they very likely will, that's 100 targets. That's a big-time number. It's 102 to be precise. That's a big-time number right there. So whoever is this number 2 could easily be a wide receiver 3, a back-end wide receiver 3 for fantasy, and you are not going to have to pay that price. The thing is, you got to guess right. I think it's going to be Dante Moncrief. James Washington, like I said, maybe a little bit later on, you toss a dart at him. But some major upside with Dante Moncrief. And don't write him off from last year. He was in fantasy purgatory in Jacksonville, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Great opportunity here for Dante Moncrief. Speaking of Dante, let's go with Dante Pettis in San Francisco. Right now, he has an easy path to be the number 1 wideout in that offense. Yes, Marquise Goodwin is there, but Marquise Goodwin isn't really a true number 1. He's a guy who can get downfield for you. They drafted Deebo Samuel, but he may not see a lot of the field early on because you could very well see Trent Taylor in the slot. So a lot of the targets, yes, George Kittle will get his, but a lot of the receiver targets could be going to Pettis immediately. We saw some major upside out of Dante Pettis last year for fantasy purposes, and with Jimmy Garoppolo back and under center, a lot of upside yet again for Dante Pettis. Love him as a sleeper this year. Another guy who's entering his 2nd year is Christian Kirk for the Arizona Cardinals. And boy, is this a different look for the Arizona Cardinals. You have now Cliff Kingsbury come in. You have Kyler Murray now under center. And the team did address wide receiver, right? Andy Isabella, Hakeem Butler, Keyshawn Johnson in this year's draft. But Kirk is the guy. He's the incumbent. Larry Fitzgerald, towards the end of his career, isn't an upside guy any longer. So if you're looking for the most upside out of these wide receivers in Arizona, it is Christian Kirk. Now, he may not be available in the late rounds. I know I said late rounds at the top of the video, but you're still looking at him as maybe an 8th round guy in a 12-team draft. So you're getting closer to the late rounds, and he's certainly a player I'd be targeting in that range. One more player here, wide receiver sleepers for you in 2019. Let's go with Deshawn Hamilton. Hamilton, all right. First and foremost, I didn't expect Emmanuel Sanders to be good to go for the start of the season, but it looks like he's going to be. He recovered from that Achilles injury, but let's be clear, that is a major injury, and Manny Sanders is on the wrong side of 30 right now. So what did we see last year when Sanders went down? Even though there was a lot of hype surrounding Courtland Sutton, it was actually Deshawn Hamilton who was leading the team in targets. He was the most productive receiver for the Denver Broncos there in December. So if he gets that opportunity again, I like him to hit the ground running. And the beautiful thing about Deshawn Hamilton right now, you don't have to pay for them. You can get them dirt cheap in the late rounds. There you have it. 5, well, with James Washington, 6 fantasy sleepers at wide receiver. You want to see where these guys land in our rankings? Check out projections, everything fully updated for your fantasy football drafts. You can do that over at PFF.com.